All right, so we've got our first attendees. So welcome everybody who is joining. I think we'll wait for a couple minutes and then we will get started with the presentation. There's now a poll that you guys should be seeing. While we're loading and bringing people in, we're asking folks about how familiar they are with machine learning. So it looks like the majority are somewhat familiar. We've got a few people who are new to machine learning. We keep that open for just a little bit longer. All right, so I'm going to end that poll. Another little poll in here about the sign-up process. How easy was the sign-up process? I'll leave that open. Nathan, if you want to go ahead and get us started, where we can go ahead and present. Looks like we've got a good amount of attendees in here, so we can start bringing them some value.
Let's do it. Welcome everyone to our webinar. Today we have Nathan Wilkerson. I'm Nathan Wilkerson, VP of Engineering for Metal Toad. I'll be going through a little bit about our company here. Unfortunately, Stacy isn't well today, and so Joaquin Lippincott, our CEO, will be filling in for her, going over some of the Amazon POC. And then Ray Pocius is a data engineer who's going to be going over some of the services you can use to help migrate data for machine learning. Quick rundown of our company. Metal Toad has been in business for well over 15 years now. Founded in 2003, we're a values-driven technical company that's worked with a lot of different companies. Majority in the past have been media and entertainment, but it's kind of spanned the gambit with other ones like Daimler and Warren into heavy industry and stuff. Just a few metrics for the company. We are fully distributed across the US and Brazil currently. 250 years of engineering across the team. And we've been pioneering new technologies, including Amazon, for the last 10 plus years. Some of the services Metal Toad offers are machine learning on Amazon, application development, big data, strategic IT consulting, UX design, and AWS managed services. As I mentioned earlier, Metal Toad is a values-based organization, and we really live by these values every day here. The 5 values are help, curiosity, experience, respect, and to provide value. We've done a lot of business with a lot of different companies across the different industries. A lot of media and entertainment, as I mentioned, several in heavy industry and other marketing spaces. And a lot of these we've actually developed data pipelines for, or data migration tools for. And so I'll hand it over to Ray, who's going to go into how to migrate your data to the cloud for machine learning.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so today's webinar will be about data migration to the cloud for machine learning. So why should one migrate their data to the AWS cloud? Well, there are several different reasons that can greatly benefit your business by utilizing the cloud and all the features it has to offer. First, it can substantially help reduce the total cost of ownership of your databases. You won't have to absorb the costs of maintaining on-premise databases and infrastructure. Not only does this save on hardware costs, it saves a lot in IT operational and maintenance costs, and makes scalability seamless. You don't need to worry about buying additional data centers or hiring the staff to maintain them. Another benefit of moving to the cloud is increased productivity, and this goes hand in hand with savings on IT operations and maintenance costs. The modern approaches to software engineering that are enabled by moving to the cloud improve the efficiency of your work tasks. So this leads to, from what Amazon says, a 60% boost in staff productivity, 7 times less downtime, and 3 times more features delivered in a year by software companies on average who move to the cloud. And another monumental advantage to having your data on the cloud is the ability to integrate it with AWS SageMaker to start learning from your data. Data utility can increase substantially by getting it into a place where you can run analytics and machine learning on it. AWS makes it easy to tackle the challenges of scalability, flexibility, security, and data access with AWS SageMaker. AWS SageMaker is a fully managed service that can be used to prepare data, build, train, and deploy machine learning models for any use case. SageMaker also comes along with fully managed infrastructure, tools, and workflows, which can help accelerate your machine learning development and reap value from your data faster. Another benefit of moving your data to the AWS cloud is that you can take advantage of the ML infrastructure that AWS has to offer. You can reduce the on-premise costs of maintaining GPUs and the compute power that you need for ML. SageMaker can also help facilitate things such as data labeling through SageMaker Ground Truth, and also model development through SageMaker Studio IDE and model deployment. So if you don't want to create your own custom model and algorithm, you can also use SageMaker's managed solutions to ML problems, which require no training or data to get them running out of the box. So SageMaker can greatly help you as you scale your ML workloads and ensure the speed you need for your applications. Some key features of SageMaker that you can take advantage of are optimized infrastructure for accelerating your model development and training. It also helps facilitate processing training data to scale using services like AWS Glue and AWS Data Pipeline. You can also take advantage of the SageMaker Studio IDE, which is displayed on the right. It provides you tools that make it easy to conduct experiments, to compare models, and to review models for deployment to a production level environment. Finally, you can also use SageMaker Ground Truth and Amazon Mechanical Turk to custom label data sets. There exists 3 AWS managed services, storage services that can integrate with SageMaker training. The first is Amazon Simple Storage Service, or Amazon S3, which is an object storage service that offers industry-leading scalability, data availability, security, and performance. The second is Amazon FSx for Lustre, which is a fully managed shared storage with the scalability and performance of the popular Lustre file system, and it's usually linked to an existing S3 bucket. And the third is Amazon Elastic File System, or Amazon EFS. And this is basically a general purpose, scalable, highly available shared file system. And EFS is serverless, and it's one that automatically grows and shrinks as you add and remove files from your database. These storage services can have data migrated to them through the following AWS data migration tools. The first being AWS Data Migration Service, AWS Data Sync, AWS Storage Gateway, and AWS AppFlow, which are each tailored for a specific data migration use case. The first I'll discuss is AWS Data Migration Service, which is a managed migration and replication service that helps you to move your databases to the AWS cloud. So this is a tool that is designed for the migration of full existing databases that are on-premise, and they can be replicated with ongoing changes to the data stores on-premise. So this is a very cost-effective service that can migrate terabyte-sized databases very cheaply and quickly. You can migrate from databases such as Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, MongoDB, and so on. So why would you use this service specifically? Well, if you're looking to utilize AWS SageMaker, maybe perhaps you don't have the resources on-premise to process your data and train machine learning algorithms, or maybe you're looking to migrate entirely from legacy or on-premise databases to the cloud, then this is the appropriate solution for you. The next service I'll talk about is AWS Data Sync. And this data migration service is used to transfer between on-premise databases and AWS. You can also transfer data between different AWS storage services and between different clouds. So this service can be a continuous sync of data files from your source to your destination. And data sync also comes equipped with in-flight encryption, so your data is secure on transition, and end-to-end data validation. So you can not only secure your file data, but you can also verify that it's been transferred properly. So when and why would you use data sync? If you're looking to move on-premise data to the cloud for easy data discovery, then this is a good tool for you. If you want to sync data continuously to be used with AWS SageMaker, then this is also a possible use case. Or if you need a hybrid data workflow, then this is the perfect tool for you. It can also be used to help with bottlenecks with on-premise ML workloads. Let's say if you've reached capacity with your GPUs on your on-premise data centers, you can send data to AWS cloud to be trained on GPUs that exist on AWS's servers. The next service I'll talk about is AWS Storage Gateway. This is a service that gives you on-premise access to basically virtually unlimited cloud storage with AWS. With this service, there's no need to deploy new storage hardware for on-premise databases. You can scale by building gateways from your on-premise databases to AWS through Amazon S3 file gateway, Amazon FSx file gateway, tape gateway, and volume gateway for all your different data needs. So when and why should you use the AWS Storage Gateway? Some potential use cases may involve moving your on-premise backups to the cloud, or you're beginning to reduce your on-premise storage with cloud-backed file shares. This can be a secure and stable way to migrate to the cloud incrementally. Or if you have an on-premise application that uses this data, you can store it on the cloud and use a gateway to access it on-prem. You can also configure data lake access for pre and post-processing workflows of your data. Maybe you want to do your pre-processing on-premise and then push post-process data to the cloud for machine learning. This storage gateway can be used for many different use cases. The final service I'll talk about is AWS AppFlow. And this service is specifically used to exchange data from SaaS applications such as Salesforce, Slack, and AWS storage services such as Amazon S3 and Redshift. And I can provide a link in the chat to the list of available integrations, but a few examples of SaaS products that you can integrate with AppFlow are Datadog, Slack, Google Ads, Salesforce, and more. So why would you use AWS AppFlow? You may use it if you need to collect perhaps operational metrics and key performance indicators for your company's data that exist on other SaaS products. After collecting these metrics, you may want to monitor them for any anomalies. So for example, you could create an anomaly detector using Amazon Lookout for metrics. And another way for you to save money using AppFlow is by pulling data out periodically from SaaS products using AppFlow and then storing them on an AWS cloud database to run longer-term reports. And this can really help reduce your spending on SaaS products for data retention. The data migration services that we've covered they all have features that can verify and both validate your data migrations. AWS Data Migration Service validates that your entire data set has been migrated successfully. And data sync checks if the written data at the destination matches exactly what you have at the source. And AppFlow also has these built-in validations. So with these services, there will be very little need to write any scripts to validate your migrations. AWS handles all of this. Now, once you've migrated your data to the AWS cloud, you can easily integrate S3, Amazon FSx for Lustre, or Amazon EFS as data input channels for your SageMaker training jobs. You can configure up to 20 different training input channels from different data sources for a single training job. And you can configure these 3 different modes for these channels. First being file mode, which has SageMaker copy the contents of your S3 bucket to whatever ML instance you're running on AWS. Fast file, which basically exposes your data set on S3 as a POSIX file system for ML instance to access. And then finally, pipe mode, which streams a data set from S3 to your ML instance using a Unix pipe. So once you've gotten to this point, you're ready to start developing your ML workflows using AWS SageMaker. And with that, I'll hand us over to Joaquin to talk about our ML proof of concept funding opportunity.
Great, thank you, Ray. So what maybe you are not aware of is that there is actually quite a bit of funding that exists in the AWS space to help people that are interested in doing machine learning. This type of funding that I'm going to be talking about, this proof of concept, is not exclusive to machine learning, but machine learning is one of a really great application given where a lot of businesses are in their overall cloud journey and their overall journey in terms of machine learning. So what is the POC or proof of concept funding? It's based on calculations that a partner like Middletoad can do for you around looking at what your potential annual spend might be. And depending on what your annual spend is, AWS will provide 10% of that annual spend towards proof of concept creation, so that POC deliverable. And so that means there's no out-of-pocket cost for you to actually go through and do that discovery and do that planning that Middletoad can do for you. There are some limitations there and some places where that funding can be easier to access. Generally up to $10,000, which would correspond with a $100,000 a year annual anticipated spend, is typically easier. The discoveries tend to be around $5,000 to $10,000 in terms of, what generally where we see the return on investment, but that funding can go all the way up to $25,000, and it's a great plan. So if you're thinking about exploring machine learning, definitely take a moment. Stacy Gordon, who just joined the call, was going to be presenting this. I see that she's made it, even though she is not feeling top of the weather right now. But any interest that you might have in pursuing a proof of concept, finding out more information about that, I'm sure Stacy would be happy to help you. And I believe her contact information is in the presentation later. Nathan, do we have a Q&A session that we want to move into after this?
Yeah, so right now we have some Q&A time. If you wanted to enter your questions into the chat, we will address them as they come up.
I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll because it seems like people have access to that, just to see if they have access to the Q&A. The Q&A. Yes. No. And these questions can be technical, they can be non-technical, no problem either way. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the Q&A question is launched. Let's see. And hopefully you can start to access that. So if you want to, you can raise your hand, you can ask questions. We can turn you guys on in terms of being able to answer those questions in person, or I'm happy to answer those questions, ask those questions of Ray or Nathan. So I don't see any open questions in the Q&A. Nathan or Ray, what I do have a question, I suppose. What's the most interesting thing that you've discovered in terms of looking specifically at machine learning, that as we've been looking at data migrations, things that have stood out, whether it's a particular tool that we discovered or were more effective, or just something you found interesting in looking at that data migration from a machine learning standpoint?
Yeah, so I've been moving cloud. Our first cloud migration was back in 2013, I believe. And the number of tools to facilitate different types of data moving to the cloud in Amazon have become well, prolific, and you have a tool to fit every use case, and the ease with which you can use these to migrate your data and then use them is amazing. So much easier than it was when we first got started, and they're continuing to improve the process for everyone.
I think one exciting feature that I've seen in AWS is AutoML. I don't know if any of you have heard about AWS SageMaker Canvas, but basically if you can get your data up to the cloud, you can just plop it in to SageMaker, and it'll automatically select like the best algorithms for you and automatically tune them. So getting ML workflows up and running on the cloud is easier than it's ever been right now. And really the trick is getting your data up to the cloud, sanitizing it, and getting it in the form that's needed for these algorithms. But that's been a really exciting area of research and both product work for AWS.
All right, we got our first question in. And this one is from Ingrid. Let me see, I'm gonna go ahead and answer live. Ingrid asks, how do you explain to someone new to the topic why data migration for machine learning might be necessary for getting a better service?
I can answer this question. I think one of the primary issues that a lot of companies have is that they have these data centers, but they don't necessarily have the ML infrastructure or the GPUs to really start training algorithms on premise. That's a very expensive investment, not only in terms of buying the processing power, the GPUs, but also having the staff to maintain it and develop the tools for the developers to access that compute power. So moving to the cloud really makes that easy. You don't have to hire infrastructure engineers to rig all of this together, or even maintain on-premise databases, which one, you have compute and power costs. You also have to pay for the cost of having the land for the data center, the GPUs themselves, which really is a high overhead cost for most companies. So going over to the cloud really enables you to move more quickly.
Thank you. Hopefully that answered your question, Ingrid. Anybody have any more questions? Okay, I see one from an anonymous attendee. Is there any typical problem while working with the cloud services and how to avoid it? So what kind of pitfalls are there when you're working with cloud services? And the question wasn't specific to ML, but it might be relevant either for ML or for other things. And actually, I'm interested to hear both from Ray and then from Nathan on that one. So Ray, do you want to start off maybe with an ML focus?
Yeah, I think some easy pitfalls that people can fall into when working with like cloud services, like especially if you're going to migrate to the cloud, is not really having any understanding what your data is, even on premise. Like that's necessary to understand, like, okay, what do I have on premise? And then like, what exactly am I going to reap in terms of benefits from moving to the cloud? So there's no sort of like kind of calculation of the value you're going to extract from that. And like maybe cloud may or may not be for you, or you'll run into these sort of bottlenecks of like, yeah, I don't know what services exactly to use. I don't know how this is going to integrate with my workflow, maybe on premise. But services like AWS Storage Gateway, like that might be like your answer to a question like this. It's like, maybe I still need to maintain some of this infrastructure on premise and do some of my compute there. So having something like a storage gateway, having gateways between your Amazon file services like S3, FSX, can basically allow you to work as normal on premise as you transition to the cloud. So I think that's like one easy like pitfall that people can fall into, is to think that, oh, I have to migrate everything right now. But Amazon provides ways for you to do that incrementally.
Great, Nathan, how about you?
Jumping to the more generic side there's a few couple that I see again and again. First and foremost is cost. The cloud is great because the cost is flexible, but it is also possible to wrap up incredibly high bills incredibly quickly. So making sure you have good cost controls in place and budget alerts is important. Another one there is security. Amazon has made it easier and easier over the years to make sure you don't leave something open, but it is still possible to leave something open that is dangerous. Public data, access to servers, and locking it down. You need to know what tools to deploy and how to use it. And lastly is limits. Amazon has limits in there both to prevent you from spending too much and to make sure that they have enough capacity for everyone to share. And they're not always the most obvious thing to find. And so once you get up and running into a production load, making sure you're researching the limits on any service you're using to make sure you're not caught off guard by those.
Great. And we've got 2 more questions. I've opened up the questions so everybody should be able to see them and upvote them if we get any others coming in. We've only got a couple minutes, so I'm going to direct the next questions at particular folks. So Ray, the next question, what do you think about all the current news about machine learning being the solution for everything or being the downfall of humanity? Is there any truth in that?
I think it's exciting and terrifying at the same time, because I think for a couple of decades now, I mean, even if you look like 3 or 4 decades ago, like machine learning research was just some workshop at an academic conference. But now we've gone to this point where there's easy user interfaces to things like ChatGPT and large language models, and there hasn't been like this much kind of exposure to ML just across the board. So people are using it for all sort of applications that, people never thought would be possible. So I think it's something that we have to adapt to. I think it's going to provide a lot of like opportunities in terms of industries centered around machine learning, developing models to fulfill certain roles and jobs and help workers in their work to perform better. But I also think we have to be careful as to how monumental could something like this be to the world and our jobs as they are right now. I think we need education on ML, and we have to carefully think about how we use it to help us. So I think that there is some truth that, like, people are very optimistic about it being the solution to everything. But there's certainly also a lot of fear around it as well, and I think that's a genuine fear, and something that everybody should carefully think about.
Great. Next question for you, Nathan. And I know we're at time, so if people need to go, thank you so much for attending. Do we have contact information, Nathan, that we can share in our slide deck? Perfect. So Stacy Gordon, who is on here, and I think she may not be able to speak clearly because she's fighting a cold, but she will be able to email. So if you have any questions, follow-up questions, you can contact her. And I'll jump into the last couple of questions for those who can stay over. So I'll direct this one to you, Nathan. So first of all, this is from Geraldo. He would like to thank us for the webinar, and then also ask about how he can ensure data security and compliance when using AWS cloud storage for machine learning. Any thoughts in particular on data security and compliance?
Yeah, so first off, sign up for the support plan, look at Trusted Advisor. It does a good job at highlighting a lot of common things for security. I'd also recommend enabling specific tools like Security Hub, which provides various levels of monitoring across the services. And then there's no replacement for going through and auditing your access policies on very sensitive data. Making sure your roles are secure and that your data is encrypted is extremely important.
And is that something Metaltoad can help with, Nathan?
That is something Metaltoad can help with. We have an inspection. You can reach out to Stacy and learn more about it. But yeah, manually auditing and enabling these audit tools that Amazon provides is the best way to go about it.
Yeah, there is a 6-point inspection offering, which includes data security. Compliance, I'd be curious about the particular type of compliance, but definitely do reach out if you would like some help there. And there's potentially Amazon backed funding for that. So then the last question we have right now, and we'll go ahead and answer live. This one's for you again, Nathan. Could you tell us more about the ways that AWS prevents the client exceeding their budgets?
Yeah, so I mentioned the limits is one way to do it, but the most important thing is to go through the cost center and billing center, and you can set up billing alerts. You can set up budgets per service or per business unit based on tags, and really explore that to set it up and protect you. We've seen a lot of bills that have been surprised. And, if you go through this thing and you have those budget alerts set up, you will know ahead of time when you're even projected to go above a certain amount by Amazon, not necessarily when you cross that amount.
Yeah. I would also say getting somebody involved, getting a professional involved. If you're spending more than even just $1,000 a month on Amazon, it's probably well worth reaching out to a consulting partner like us or somebody else who operates in that space. I'll go ahead and mark that as answered. And we're 3 minutes over. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation, found it educational. If you have any questions or follow up, please feel free to follow up with Stacy, or you can send us an email at hello@metaltoad. And thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.